Cheers, everybody. We are back for another edition of Bourbon on a Budget. It's review time. Ben is cheersing the glass. I can't really tell what Brendan's doing because that part of my screen is blocked. But
I was cheersing it too. Just
cheers.
We are reviewing and jumping right into Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel.
Nice.
First, this is an allocated bottle. Yes, our first allocated bottle that we're reviewing. We kind of stumbled upon reviewing this. It wasn't necessarily the plan when we finished last week, but because we reviewed the standard Elijah Craig last week when Sean was on, and because of this week's main episode being about toasted finishes, we said, let's go with Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel. And we're going to review that for you. Brendan, can you tell us a little bit about it?
So much like the Elijah Craig straight bourbon that we reviewed last week, TJ, this is a straight bourbon too. Very, very similar, except for it's finished with a toasted barrel. And we got into that in the previous episode, what a toasted barrel is. So you guys can go ahead and listen to that episode where we got a little toasty, talk about toasted barrels. So let's see.
Quick recap for those that haven't watched that first part of that episode. The char finish is something that happens with all barrels. Toasted finish is kind of low and slow. So if you think of like smoking meat, a toasted finish on a barrel is low and slow, where a char is quick and heavy. So think about the difference between, maybe grilling wings or smoking wings is maybe a good comparison. Toasted finishes, the juice is taken from the regular new char oak barrels, put into the toasted finish barrels for a certain amount of time, and then dumped out. So it's the same juice, just finished in a different kind of toasted barrel. Sorry, I interrupted you. Specs on that, Brendan?
Oh, so it is legitimately like the very, very similar juice. It has the same mash bill, 78% corn, 12% malted barley, 10% rye. So same mash bill as the small batch. Same proof. Both are at 94. Both are obviously from Heaven Hill Distillery. Like with the small batch, there is no age statement on this. Just to get a little bit more into the toasty, this is what the toastiness is what the PR or the press release had said about it. Quote, the process begins with fully matured small batch, which is dumped and then re-entered at barrel proof into a second custom toasted new oak barrel designed in partnership with Independent Stave Company. Made with 18-month air-dried oak, the finishing barrel is toasted and then flash charred using a moderate toast temperature and toast time. The MSRP on this is about $50. My buddy picked one up once at a BJ's wholesale for like $40, but because it's allocated, as TJ said, online, probably closer to like $140 or so is what you're going to have to pay for it. I got mine through a friend. Thank you, TJ, for $60-ish.
So secondary value on this is between 90 and 100. Just for those out there, because it's allocated, I think that it's important to kind of give a value of like what people are paying. I think 140 online is way too much. If you're paying 140, that's not. Secondary to me is too much, but yeah, 140 is way too high. But you'll find it online at different sites for that that are even higher than kind of the going rate on secondary. Going rate on secondary, you should be able to get it between 90 and 100. That would include shipping. Not that I know anything about that. Ben, we haven't heard from you yet tonight. Tell us about the nose on this thing.
So I actually have both the original small batch and the toasted barrel back to back, and it's really a distinct nose, and I'm really enjoying it. There's definitely like a marshmallow kind of note there. Very like caramelized sugars. A little bit smoky, but it's more of like a roasted marshmallow. So it's really nice.
We talked about this in the main show, but the first time that I ever had something that had a toasted finish, that was my exact takeaway, was the marshmallow that I got off the taste. I know that's so cliche with the toasted finish, right? Because you think about toasted marshmallows, but you're exactly right. You're spot on. I get it too. I think that especially for me, this nose is more enjoyable than last week's. I'm not doing them side by side like you are, but just kind of remembering back since it's only been a week. Yeah. I like the sweeter. I like the toast. It's a little more complex. Brendan, what do you think?
I definitely get that. Again, toasty. I know we're kind of falling back on that word there, but it exists for a reason, and that toasting process does show up here. That marshmallowiness that Ben alluded to for sure. Also like a milk chocolate to me, and a lot of dark fruits, almost kind of raisiny as well, which I think we got when we had the Woodford Double Oak, which is also a toasted finish a couple weeks back. I'm getting that as well, like that dark kind of chocolate covered raisin type of deal as well. It's very pretty nose, very unique too.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I want to say the Elijah, like the original Elijah, had a small like little nuttiness to it, and so like if you've ever had like a fluffer nutter,
Ooh.
you kind of like in that realm of like a little bit of peanut, a little bit of marshmallow. It's cool. It's definitely more complex than your typical small batch. So good notes for me.
I feel like not enough people know what a fluffer nutter is. Unfortunately, kids today probably aren't grown up on fluffer nutters, and I think that's a damn shame. Peanut butter, marshmallow whip.
It's got Uncrustables now.
They were definitely more prevalent in Brendan's time growing up. But like I think
the 60s you grew up.
I think the tail end of things, like when Ben and I were, like we were.
When we were in high school, you were like just graduating college, I think. Right?
I don't even think that's accurate. I don't even think that's remotely close to be accurate.
Taste. What do you think on this taste?
I'm struggling with a little bit of some of the flavors here on this. It's sweet for sure. I'm getting sweet in the flavor profile. Red fruit, kind of like apple, a little bit of cherry. But Ben, help me out. Like I am legitimately struggling. My brain is struggling to place what I'm getting here on it. Just very sweet and rich to me.
It's definitely sweet. It's on the sweeter side of the spectrum. Going back and forth between the original and the toasted, I feel a lot of the like spicier characteristics have been muddled down a bit because remember we're doing a finishing on this. So you're taking the regular small batch and then you're redumping it into a toasted barrel. So a lot of it, like original character, is just mellowed out a bit from, like I said, those spicier notes. If you want a considerably like sweeter approach, but you like the base profile of Elijah, then this is a really good option for you. I really think the nose is more impressive than the taste, in my opinion. But it's a really interesting nose.
I agree. I agree totally. So far, the nose I thought was really intriguing and captivating. The flavor to me is just kind of muted and not super defined right now. I'm still waiting for it to open up. It's not happening for me though.
I think that on the taste, like you said, exactly what Ben pulls out. With losing some of those spices, I mean, I do get a little bit of and we're certainly keeping it in the s'mores family with this, but I almost get kind of like a chocolate. I mean, almost like a s'mores. Like I'm pulling out a chocolate. I'm pulling out kind of like what's the outside of the s'more?
The graham cracker.
Do you almost get a little graham cracker? Like I don't know, power suggestion that I'm going with here. I don't know. I feel like the taste on this does kind of die off a little bit from last week. Where I think it excels, and I think it's obviously a good transition right into it, is the finish. Because on the finish is where I get those spice notes back. It's where I get that toasty flavor back, that marshmallowy flavor is on the finish. So I think that because it's finished in that second barrel, the taste itself gets somewhat muted, and you kind of have to drink it for a little while to kind of get those tasting notes back to where they're more noticeable, that they're standing out more. But the finish is where this really comes in strong, and I get those spice notes back. I get the sweetness again, of course, that it's had throughout from nose to taste to finish. Yeah. And I get that toasted finish coming in at the end of it. So taste is tough with this one, but I do get the finish really strong. I do want to ask Ben, though, specifically, going back and forth on the taste between both of them, would you say, like we'll get into numbers here in a minute, so I don't want to go into that actually. But like, what are your thoughts on the taste when you go back and forth? Like, are you able to pick stuff up better?
So it's definitely, I get more cherry on the regular Elijah Craig. A lot of like brighter, like tart fruits, but I think that's more of just a comparison as opposed to like really pulling those notes out by themselves. It's just we're going from a highly like sweet toasted bottle back to something that's not that. And so of course I'm picking out some spicier, sour, tart notes in comparison. So overall they're good. I don't think the approach here is to try to just take Elijah small batch and make it marshmallow. It's trying to be its own product. So I think going back and forth is a little disingenuous to their kind of like end goal, but it's something I have to do. I mean, come on, like you have to do it.
Well, you're comparing against the standard. I mean, we did the same thing with
Right.
Woodford Reserve when we went through, right? We started with their standard and then compared it against everything else.
Right.
Brendan, have you been able to, as we've been chatting and kind of fooling around here, have you been able to pick anything else back out of the taste?
I would like to add to what Ben said, like what he's comparing the two, and obviously I'm not comparing them either. But what I can recall from the Elijah Craig, these are two totally different drinks. Like I wouldn't drink this and be like, this is Elijah Craig profile,
Yeah,
at all. So it is amazing, similar to like what TJ said with the Woodford and the double oaked. What that toasting process does, and I think this was what it was 18 months in the toasted barrel. Like it just changes it drastically.
yeah.
A little bit more with the taste. Yeah, I've got a little bit more, almost like a faint nuttiness, like roasted almonds, somewhat. It's not a ton, but I think again that roasted, toasty vibe is coming there. I see what you mean with the graham cracker, TJ. It's not quite that level of sweet, even though it is sweet. It's more this like rich sweetness to me. I'm still struggling with it. I am getting a little bit of orange zest as well, almost like you know when people take like oranges and throw it like in a sangria or something like that, like kind of that dark fruitiness with the orange citrusy. That would be the closest thing that my brain can kind of connect to right now. It's super interesting and unique and different. I am struggling to find definitive flavors right now.
So I talked a little bit about the finish. I think that the finish is stronger because that toast comes in, the spice comes in at the end. But what are you guys' thoughts on the finish? Brendan, you can keep going there.
I'm going to use Ben's favorite word to describe the finish. You ready for it, Ben?
Flat.
Smooth.
Smooth. He hates that.
He does.
Ben says that every finish falls flat. So I just figured that's what you meant.
Well,
I don't think this one does, but I was like, all right, well, then that's what Ben says for every other finish.
It isn't spicy. It isn't dramatic. It is very pleasant. It's very easygoing. It's not boring, though, either to me. I am, again, getting kind of like that little citrus vibe at the end. Dark, fruity notes again, like almost like fig. That's maybe what I'm getting. You remember Fig Newtons? You guys ever have those cookies back in the day?
Yeah.
A little bit of bready and a little bit of that nasty fig, but like this actually fig tastes pretty good right now. Yeah, the finish is good. What do you think, Ben? Is it smooth or flat for you?
You're on mute. I'm not even looking at the website.
Damn. Did I throw it to him too early? Poor Ben. Poor Ben.
No. It wouldn't have mattered.
I missed it.
He was on mute.
Yeah.
We're not
No.
fixing that either.
Yeah. So I think the finish is rather unremarkable. Like I kind of struggle with this on a value perspective for me. And we'll get to that later. I don't want to jump too far forward on value, but finish overall is better than your standard Elijah, but not incredible by any means.
So you gave last week, well, we're not 2 points yet, but for perspective, you gave last week's Elijah Craig a quarter point.
I get more. It'll get more than that.
Okay. So, but better. So it's a slight improvement. Again, I think doing these 1 week apart is kind of cool because it's so fresh in my mind. Obviously, you doing it side by side is big too. I was going to do it side by side, but then I went to look for my bottle of Elijah Craig and I couldn't find it.
It's at my house.
So anyway, all right. Let's rate it. We've talked about nose, taste, and finish. Let's get into the ratings here. I'll start us off. I never start us out, so I will on this one. I think that this nose is slightly better than Elijah Craig Small Batch. And so for the first time in show history, I'm giving this nose a 1.75. We've never given a nose anything higher than a 1.5.
Oh wow.
I just couldn't say that it was perfect, but it's a really good nose. Like the nose on this is fantastic. Brendan.
I thought you were going to say 2 at first when you said it was going to be the first time in show history because we haven't had a perfect nose. But I'm with you, TJ. This is pretty damn close. And I had to go back and look at what we gave Elijah Craig Small Batch last week. And I think we went 1.5 across the board, including with Sean. This was a little bit better than that. This was pretty close to an elite, near perfect nose. I went with 1.75 as well. It was really pretty, really unique, rich, complex, really damn good nose. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, it's hard for me to depart. I really think that if I didn't have the benchmark at 1.5, I'd probably go 1.5 for this, but 1.75 seems reasonable. Like I said, it's my favorite part of this experience. It was great.
From high to low, let's go Ben on the taste.
So I'm probably going to go probably 2.5. 2.5 on taste.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brendan.
I went with a 2. I couldn't differentiate enough. There just wasn't enough. There's either too much going on to where I couldn't pick it out, or there wasn't enough going on to where I couldn't figure it out. Either way, it wasn't unpleasant. It was fine. It tasted like bourbon to me. But other than just some of the toasty nuttiness and some of the orange zest, like there wasn't a whole lot more oomph to it that I would have liked to say it was more than above average. So what about you, TJ?
So I gave regular Elijah Craig a 2.5 last week. I'm going slightly higher. I know I'm the toasted fool on this show. So to me, it's slightly better than the Elijah Craig. And so if I had that at a 2.5, there's a 2.75. I like Ben talked about this. I tend to go a little sweeter on things. And so I'm giving it a 1/4 point higher than the regular Elijah Craig. Finish. Brendan, you start us out on this one.
I went with 0.5 on the finish. Again, it was nice. It was easygoing, very, very pleasant. I get a lot of the dark fruity notes are there, the fig, kind of like date. A lot of dark fruits. But other than that, like some of the chocolatiness and that toastiness and marshmallow we were getting on the nose, like it just doesn't show up on the taste. It doesn't really ride off to the sunset either for me. It's fine, but average. So 0.5 for me.
Ben?
Yeah, 0.5 seems right. So
again, slightly higher than Ben had last week. I'm going with a full 1 here. I like the finish. I think that where the taste lacks, the finish picks up. I get that toasted finish. The spices aren't overwhelming or anything. The Kentucky hug's not crazy. It's kind of like the side hug, right, Brendan? But I think it redeems itself somewhat from the taste. And so I gave the finish a full 1. I gave small batch a half last week. So probably should give this a 0.75, but being a little bit of a homer
shoot for the
here.
stars.
DJ's such a toasty whore. Ben, do you remember the movie The Brave Little Toaster?
I do remember that toasty movie.
That's TJ.
When I was watching that as a 6-year-old, I was 6. Brendan was like 13 watching it.
That's not true. That's not right. That's not right.
Ben, let's take a vote. Yeah, all those in favor?
That I'm 7 years older than you guys?
Brendan's super old? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Easily.
Brendan even raised his own hand.
Those are verifiable facts.
I can't wait to make a gif of that. Raise your hand if you're old. So when I was like 3 years old watching that movie and Brendan was 36, I was just thinking I'd love to have a bourbon that had been in that toaster. And so now we have it. Cohesiveness and complexity. Ben.
I'm going to this 0.75. There's a lot of complexity there, so it's good.
Brendan.
You know what? 0.75 for the exact reason Ben said. It is cohesive. It is complex. It's nice, especially that nose. 0.75.
You're just giving it. You're gonna give it a 1. Just give it a 1.
Give it a 1. Do it, coward.
Okay, so which is lacking? Because the standard always here was like if it's cohesive, it's half a point. It's complex, it's half a point. I want to know where you guys docked the half a point from.
Don't debate me.
No, I'm not debating. I'm just curious.
I will tell you what my thought process was, other than copying Ben's score exactly. Because I felt like I just thought I would agree with Ben, and that would be it. But here we go.
I got a response too.
The people know why you rated something what you rated it.
I thought the nose was legitimately so pretty, so complex, so interesting and unique compared to what we would normally get on a bourbon. That got all of the points for the complexity part for me. The cohesiveness, what I got on the nose versus what I got on the taste and the finish was fairly disjointed. So instead of going 0.5 for complexity and 0 for cohesiveness, I gave an extra 0.25 points for complexity because it was so complex with the nose versus the just not being what showed up on the nose didn't show up throughout the entire bottle, which is a damn shame too, because it would have been a really special drink if that was the case. Does that make sense? Kind of.
Yeah. No, Brendan's correct on this.
All right, good.
I think we have a lot of things where we end up saying the nose was the best part of this. It happened last week with Elijah Craig small batch. It happened with Four Roses small batch.
That's not good.
I want to say it happened with,
even though it was in your starter pack, but
it needs to be there, which is not good for me.
I want to also say it happened with Willet Pot Still. So it is something that's fairly common. So I agree with the logic. I'll go one on this one.
Do you, boo-boo.
That was about 5 minutes of you justifying a one.
I will say this, that a lot of the time blenders, I've heard this before, blenders either have to go for the nose or go for flavor. It's tough to be really, really good at both. The ones that are elite at both or really good at both are elite for a reason. And it's rare to be like all the way through. So that does make sense to where half the time we're probably like, hey, this nose is great. The flavor falls off. Other times the nose is okay. The flavor is something unique and different. It makes sense.
Yeah. Let's talk about value. Brendan with a 5.5. I'm sorry, a 5 out of 8. Ben with a 5.5 out of 8. And myself with a 6.5 out of 8. We talked about the MSRP on this is around $50, $55. It is allocated. It's hard to find. So you're probably paying closer to $90 for it. So I don't exactly know how this factors into the value. Again, we did dock Buffalo Trace week 1 for not being, or I'm sorry, week 2 for not being super accessible. This is probably even less accessible. But for $55, for 94 proof, pretty hard to find. Let's start with Ben.
Yeah. So I would distinguish Buffalo Trace and this as Buffalo Trace isn't allocated, at least not in the same way that Toasted is. So I have to consider the secondary pricing because the majority of people are probably going to end up buying it on that secondary price. I would be way more interested in this bottle if they didn't proof it down after going into the toasted barrel. If they came out with a
100
barrel,
proof would be
a barrel strength, or like a C920 toasted, that'd be ridiculous, right? Like everyone would be to the moon for that. And then I would pay even more. I could see Brandon said it's like 140 with more like 90 to 100. I could see it going for 140 if this was like barrel strength. That'd be awesome. So it being 94 proof really is hurting me on that side. So value, I would probably go quarter point.
Woo!
If you can get it at MSRP, great. But
and even then, so I'm closer to Ben. I thought maybe I was going to be low here. Remember, this value is out of 2. I'm going.
0.5. It's out of 2. Yeah. Okay, let me revise. Let me go back and double that.
I was going 0.5, regardless.
0.5.
All right,
yeah, 0.5 is a little aggressive.
And my reasoning is very similar to Ben's. I paid $60 for this recently. I feel like that's about right. Maybe that's a little on the high side, but it is unique, especially with the nose. It's cool. It's good. So I don't have buyer's remorse for it at all. I feel like that makes it. And then in my mind, slightly still below average value, just given how hard it is to find. If someone's looking to pay $100 for it, I would say you could probably spend your money better elsewhere in the bourbon world.
Go 1910 toasted,
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll do a
good head-to-head. And they're the same MSRP. So I'll go 0.75, and I'm factoring in the fact that I have gotten through different channels one time in a store 4 or 5 different bottles of this at retail, and so it is tough to find, but not impossible. So again, 0.75. I'll go slightly higher just because I found it at retail and you guys haven't. So anyway, but I understand how tough it is. I will say, if we were not factoring in, the allocation, hard to find part of this, and we were just rating this on a $55 bottle, I had it at a 6.5 beforehand. It probably would have gotten a 1.5.
That was a point, or not a full point, but a half a point for me, TJ. If it was readily available, it probably is at least average value. Maybe I would consider bumping that up even a little bit. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'd
have had it. We all kind of jump it up half a point, but we finished at Ben with a 6 out of 10. Brendan slightly under at a 5.5 out of 10, and the Toast Man himself 7.25 out of 10 for me.
The Toast Man,
bringing our composite to 6.25.
Not going to make it. The board stays the same.
6.25. For some reference, last week's got 5.875. That was the regular Elijah Craig. Woodford Reserve got a 6. Four Roses Small Batch got a 4.8. Double Rye and Old Forester 100 blew it out of the water. Eagle Rare got a 6.08 thanks to Ben.
We'll have to redo that one.
It did beat out Will It Pot Still, and that's as far as we get.
What didn't beat out Will It Pot Still?
Nothing. Everything beat it. It almost 4 was a small batch beat it. So anyway, this has been a long review, longer than we normally go. Actually, like 10 minutes longer than we normally go. So thanks for putting up with us. Thanks for hanging out the whole time. We'll try and make.
If you're still listening, thanks.
Yeah, we'll try and make it better next week. We had a good time. Made fun of Brendan for being old. Made fun of me for being a toasty horse. So follow us on social media, Bourbon on a Budget. We appreciate the interaction. We will see you next week when we rate something else and have another episode for you. Until then, cheers.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Is that Borat?